Hello, and welcome to the SharePoint Framework and JavaScript bi-weekly special interest group. This is our meeting for January 4th, 2018. Welcome to 2018, our first meeting of the new year. Hope everybody had got an opportunity to take some time off and relax a little bit at the end of the year. And we've got a big meeting for you today. So just to cover real quick for folks that might be new to the call or watching these recordings for the first time, these special interest group meetings are part of the larger Patterns and Practices programs, and they were begun to give a little bit of a better focus around some different topic areas, because as we grew and expanded our coverage, we weren't able in our monthly calls to cover everything. There's just too much to cover. So things were getting missed, and it felt like the thing to do was to have more meetings, which is always the answer, but these meetings help us focus on these different areas. So we've got this one you're in now around client-side development and SharePoint Framework. We also have one on the Managed Code and PowerShell, are our two special interest groups currently, and you can of course attend one or both or all of our meetings. So glad to have everybody here today. So we are going to cover an open discussion around the SharePoint Framework, client-side development patterns, and latest releases in SharePoint Framework. We talk about then as well our reusable components, Office 365 CLI, some other things we're doing within the Patterns and Practices program around client-side development, and then as well the JavaScript core component library we've been working on together as a community. And we've got two links down there at the bottom. The first one is to the SPPNP- community. We'll take you to the Microsoft Tech community, which is a great place for general questions and answer. How do I do XYZ in my application? Those sorts of things that aren't necessarily appropriate for an issues list in GitHub, for example. And then the second link there, the AKMS SP Dev Docs, will take you to the official SharePoint development documentation, which is always a work in progress, always something we're looking to improve, but that is now the current home for the documentation around all of SharePoint development, whether you're looking to get into SharePoint Framework and are new to that and looking to get started, or whether you need to do stuff around client-side, or around managed code development, or the add-in model, the provider-hosted add-ins. Check that stuff out. All your documentation is going to be there at that link. So without further ado, our agenda for today, we're going to have a quick update on the JavaScript core component, update on the SharePoint Framework latest news, an update around the Office 365 CLI work that's going on, and then an update around our Patterns and Practices reusable client-side controls. And then as well, we have a community demo from Eric Brantzig, I hope I said that right, around a neat little pattern he was showing off in the Gitter channel around wrapping JSON calls in promises and then using async on those. So kind of a neat little pattern. And then we may have time for Q&A at the end of this call. It's going to be a pretty packed call. But one note on the agenda, you'll note we've kind of expanded this here to include the Office 365 CLI and the reusable controls. And the idea behind this is to really start promoting and bringing to the fore all of the work we're doing around client-side development in Patterns and Practices. And so this is an opportunity for folks to sort of maybe learn about some things they hadn't heard about before, and find different ways they can use what we're working on within their day-to-day either development work or administrative work, or just hoping to make your lives easier, which is our goal at the end of every day. So some opportunities to participate, both in this special interest group as well as the larger Patterns and Practices program. We really invite anyone from the community, if you've got a SharePoint Framework solution you've written, this could be a web part, this could be an extension, to come demo that on this call. Just get in touch with us, myself or Vesa, and we'll get you on the agenda. And we really see a lot of value from those community demos. We've had some amazing ones in the past, and I think it's really an opportunity for us to all learn from each other. And honestly, I think it's really cool just to see what folks out there are doing, because in some cases it's stuff I would never have thought to do that ends up being really, really cool. So come on the call, show off what you're working on. Really love to see it. You can also contribute, of course, on GitHub, either to the core JavaScript core libraries we're working on. The Office 365 CLI is, of course, open source as well. And then as well, the community, the reusable controls that we'll talk about here in a little bit are also open source. So all of these are opportunities to contribute on GitHub, and on GitHub as well, contribute by submitting issues, suggestions, questions, and giving us that feedback, which is always valuable. If you've done anything around the SPP&P.js library, whether that's in a project, doing something in Node, demo that on this call. Love to see that stuff as well. Doesn't have to specifically be inside SharePoint Framework. And then, of course, the final way to participate is to provide us feedback. So through any of these channels, we love to get feedback on all the work we're doing across patterns and practices. We get both good feedback and constructive feedback, and all of that is valuable to help us at the end of the day produce better assistance and guidance for those of you out there in the community. So thanks to everybody that has provided or participated in any of these ways, and really encourage folks, if you're on the fence, jump in and let us know, do a demo on the call, contribute on GitHub. We really couldn't be doing this without all of your support out there in the community. So an update on the JavaScript core component. So the short update, I took some time off at the end of last year, so not a lot happened in the last couple weeks, but did want to give folks an update on where we're at. So work continues on those @PNP scoped libraries. As I mentioned on the last call, those are essentially code complete at this point. Code complete in the sense of ready for release. Obviously, nothing's ever 100% code complete in terms of new features and things, but aiming for a January 15th release. So I'm going to try and aim that release to go with the SPP&P.js release, which is also for January 15th. Really, the only blocker for the release is documentation. As I mentioned before, I think I'm probably one of the slowest documentation writers in the world, but I'm working on that. And of course, if folks want to jump in and help there, please do. Contribute on the docs, and if you're unsure how to do that, just reach out, and I will definitely get you involved. And I did want to mention there was some talk on the last call around timelines, and I want to talk about that again briefly, just to hopefully avoid any confusion. And we talked about, so when we release the new @PNP scoped libraries, we are going to give then a timeline on SPP&P.js for 6 months, where we'll continue to support that. And then our work is going to shift over after those 6 months to just be on the PNP scoped libraries, meaning the new features and things we add are going to go there. Now, this only applies to the client-side libraries. This has nothing to do with PowerShell, CSOM, SharePoint Framework, Reusable Components, Office 365 CLI, or anything else. It's strictly around SPP&P.js migrating to these @PNP scoped libraries, where you will find all the same functionality, just possibly in slightly different places. And just want to be very clear about that. And after that 6 months, SPP&P.js isn't going to go anywhere. It's going to remain in GitHub. It's going to remain published on NPM, so none of your existing work will break. And we will always be open to, if folks in the community put together pull requests and want to submit those to the SPP&P.js library, that's absolutely encouraged and wonderful, and you're welcome to do that, though we would also encourage folks for new work to then look at putting that into the @PNP scoped libraries, into whichever library it might be appropriate, whether it's the SharePoint one, the Graph one, or any of the supporting libraries. So we'll continue to discuss this. I want to be very open and kind of upfront about what we're doing, so nobody's really surprised, but just wanted to mention that again. And then SPP&P.js, quick, like I mentioned, release schedule for January 15th. And I appreciate we've got some good issues and some good feedback coming on that. Keep that coming in. Really appreciate that. That helps us fix bugs and make things better for everybody. So appreciate all the feedback, whether it's issues or just questions and things around the SPP&P.js work. So we've got a quick demo. We're going to switch over to Eric Bradzig to show his pattern. So Eric, I think you are as a presenter and should be able to take over and share your screen.
Thanks. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick presentation or demo of have to use async await with JSON. So most of you probably think that JSON is dead, but I don't think so, because a lot of stuff still doesn't work in REST, so we got to keep with the old stuff still. So what I got here on my left side is a normal SharePoint page. It's in Norwegian, sorry for that. On the right side, I got my IDE. So first thing, I will make a demo file. I'm going to use something I call Tick. Tick is a tool we made at work that we use for testing things and running things. It's kind of neat. So when I start this, it's basically Babel and Webpack and all the stuff. So I will run this, and then I don't need a terminal. When I save now, it will run instantly. I can show how it works with PnP. So I'll get a web. I try to print that, and there it is. So it's that simple. It's just for testing and hacking, and we can save the file, so it's kind of neat, but not the thing I'm going to show. So what I need to get now is the JSON stuff. So we got 3 functions that we talked about in Gitter, which are used to help us using JSON and help us combine JSON with PnP and other libraries. We call the first one for exec. This file is the class or the module with all the stuff, but it's only in Gist at the moment. We might push it to npm later, and we need context. Let's check that context is available. It is. Great. Then we will get web as we used to do before. And then we need to load the web. Still same old JSON code. Then comes the cool thing. We can now do await and execute the context. And now the web should be loaded. Yay! So that's the whole magic thing, and it helps us with wrapping JSON. So we also got a couple of other methods. We can get items. Load the items like before, execute, and now items, let's see, should come down here. No, that's, oh, what's the, it's right there, yay! Now we got the item collection. So if we go up to import, we can import to array. And it will convert an enumerator to an array. It's just a helper. So you can see the values as they come out. It's kind of simple. And then we made a third method, which is to combine execute and to array. Call it for load. What you do then is you can say items is, and it will do all the execution for us. So you don't need load and we don't need execute. So we can remove those, and it breaks. Yeah, because it calls also two arrays, so we don't need two arrays any longer. Remove that as well, and it works. Nice. Then I like to show how the code really looks in the. Or first, I would like to show how you might think that load will execute every time because of the way it looks. So if I do load web and load items, if I now go to network, clear it, and run the code, you would expect two process periods, but it doesn't do that. It uses promises in a hacky way, so it will actually run only once until the next await. If I await this, it will probably be two. No, it would be. Oh, await this. It will be two. No, okay. It doesn't matter. It will only run once. I can prove that it works by printing it. Go back to console. Okay. Oh. Best. Yeah. It gets both, and it does only one request. Do that as well, yeah. I would like to show the helper code for execute. It's this part. That's all. It's a bit hard to see now, but basically all execute query async, and it will resolve and reject it. And then lastly, I will do one other test just to show how cool JSON is. So we got another thing at work. It's just a prototype. We call it SBQL. It's GraphQL for JSON, or it's kind of, you can write a GraphQL and it will use JSON to get the data. Looks like this, and then we can do something like we want to get the fields from web, from field to like the title and internal name. This is GraphQL, so it uses GraphQL parser library. Run this, and we get stuff like this. That's kind of cool. And you might think that also does a lot of requests, but as GraphQL should be, it does only one. So yeah. That's it.
And so I believe Vesa is up next with a SharePoint Framework update.
Yes, indeed. So from a SharePoint engineering perspective, quick update on the SharePoint Framework. So last time we had a community call in the biweekly schedule on the 21st of December. So technically, it's pretty obvious that nothing super major has happened between the 21st of December and the 4th of January. But we have been actually working on something which I promised to show 2 weeks ago in the community call, which was around the graph and the future capabilities in the SharePoint framework. Before we go there, like mentioned when we started the community call, just a reminder, all of the SharePoint development documentation, not just the SharePoint framework, everything which is relevant has been moved to the docs.microsoft.com platform. And please go and check this out and give us feedback also. So if you go to the SP Dev Docs repository and there's an issue list, if there's anything missing from our documentation, please let us know. If something isn't good, please create an issue in the SP Dev Docs issue list so that we know some that we need to make improvements on the documentation, or also in the SharePoint framework itself. But I've shown that slide quite a few times actually in this course, but I keep on doing that in the future as well. Now, I think the most important, interesting topic of today is actually the graph call. And my animation in here is actually slightly messed up. Maybe, let's see. Now, the graph access or the third-party API access works, and this is something what's going to be released relatively soon as part of SPFX 1.4.1 or 1.5. We'll see how the versioning will be figured out. I can't give you an exact date or a week, but it's in matter of days rather than weeks when this one will be available for preview usage in the SharePoint Online. Now, and we've been kind of in the Ignite, and during the autumn we've been promising that pretty soon you will have additional scopes in Microsoft Graph. What's super beautiful within this design is that it's not only for Graph, it's also for other stuff as well. So in the future, you have unlimited scopes in Microsoft Graph, except the tenant administrator will actually manipulate and make those decisions. What are the scopes and what are the permissions for the SharePoint Online Client object? And so the SharePoint Online Client is something which we will provision automatically for every single Azure AD application. And that's the one where we grant additional scopes, additional permissions. And Tenant Administrator essentially is doing that, and we give you PowerShell commandlets to manipulate those. We give you PowerShell commandlets to request those, and then whenever there's a SharePoint Framework solution, web part or a extension, it doesn't really matter. When it's actually calling, when it's actually executing something, there's a new Azure AD client or MS Graph client, which is aware of those tokens and scopes which have been granted for this particular object. So essentially, what are the access scopes and what are the access points and permissions which the tenant administrator has granted for SharePoint Framework solutions. So this is really obviously great because it enables us in a safe way call third-party APIs, so web APIs, which is the holy grail of SharePoint Online. So being able to securely call a web API in a way that it's authenticated and authorized. The second thing is that this enables you to actually have access, or enables you to configure additional scopes, for example, for Microsoft Graph. So if your solution requires a certain set of additional permissions, like details around the personas within your organization, you can actually do that using the new design, which is then available relatively soon. And again, this goes to preview relatively soon. There will be some ugly UIs, there will be some things which we need to still sort out during the preview, but the preview is already a great start to get to learn what's actually coming, and then it will go worldwide availability later this spring. Now, to be able to actually show you in practice how this works, I've delegated this responsibility for Paolo, who can actually start sharing his screen and do the live demo. Paolo has been helping us on the documentation part and making sure that the basics are working before we go live and release this for a wider audience. But Paolo, can you share your screen and let's have a closer look on things?
I'm stealing the screen presentation. Yeah.
Yes, please do. And we can see the implementation, the nice red UI, which we already talked about earlier today. We need to change the color at least. It's
you know, I'm a web designer, so that's the result.
Yes.
Just kidding, of course. Well, this is a client-side web part, which uses these new capabilities that you were talking about a few seconds ago. So through this client-side web part, we can use the Microsoft Graph to search the users in the current tenant based on their first name, last name, or display name, and we can get back the list of all of the matching users. This is running in a preview environment, so we have some kind of weird username, but who cares? And we will use this web part, first of all, to make a search to show you how it works. And then I will explain you how it is built under the cover. So Let me search, for example, for user 1, which is, as you can imagine, one of the testing users we have. And as soon as I will search for this user, I will get back a response from the Microsoft Graph with the user matching this search criteria. As you can see on the right side of my screen in the property pane, I can select if I want this web part to use an AAD HTTP client consumption model or the MS Graph client, because now with the 1.4.1 or whatever version it will be of the SharePoint framework, we will have two different client types that we can use to consume Azure AD secured applications. The first one is to consume any Azure AD secured application. The second one is to use the Graph client within the SharePoint framework. So let me try to explain you how this demo works. So let me switch to the source code of my solution. This is a SharePoint framework client-side web part built using React, but it doesn't really matter what kind of development framework you use. And my client-side web part is using the client mode property in its own properties to define what kind of client we want to use. But the key point of this solution is the React component. In fact, in the React component, aside from the UI, we have a primary button built using Office UI Fabric, in which we fire a search method in which we can select if we want to use the Azure AD client or the Graph client. And we have two different procedures that will use each of the available options. First of all, whatever will be your choice, whether you will use the AAD HTTP client or the Graph client, you will have to declare in your solution what permissions you want to have in order to run your solution. And in the package solution.json file, in the config folder, we have a new section, the Web API permission request section, through which we can define an array of permission scopes that we need to have in order to run our solution. Keep in mind that this setting is at solution level. So if you will have multiple client-side web parts with different requirements, you will have to collect all of the permission requests at once in this place. Let me say, merging all of the permission requests for all of the web part here in the package solution. So you cannot define a permission request per each web part. And now I simply need to have the user read basic.all permission from a Microsoft Graph perspective, because in my implementation, I'm using the capability to list the users through the Microsoft Graph. And as you can see, this is one of the options that I have from a security perspective. Now, once I declare this option in the package solution, and once I package my solution and I deploy the solution on the target app catalog in my tenant, I can grant the permission that this solution is requesting for using the admin UI, which is still in preview as all of the functionalities we are talking about right now, in the new SharePoint Central Administration in SharePoint Online. So once I have such a setting in my package, and once I install the package in the app catalog, I can use the new SharePoint Admin Center, which can be reached using this link in the old one, and it will bring me to this UI. And here I have the Web API permission management page, which clearly is still under preview. And from this page, I can approve or deny any specific permission request for any of the packages that I installed in my app catalog. We can see the same kind of permissions applied to a specific application registered in the Azure Active Directory tenant under the cover of the Office 365 tenant for an application which is called SharePoint Online Client. So whenever you configure a permission on this side and you approve a permission on this side, you will have in the Azure AD side the same permission available under the permission sections in the security settings of the SharePoint Online client applications. Once you have the permissions properly configured for your solution, in your code, you can simply say, okay, if you want to use the AID HTTP client object, you just need to create a new instance of that type. You will need to provide the service scope of the current context, as well as the URL of the target API that you want to consume. And now it is the Graph API. But as Vesa already said, it can be whatever else you like, as long as it is an API which is configured in your Azure AD tenant as an available application. Here, because I'm using the Microsoft Graph, I will use the syntax of the Graph APIs, and I'm simply searching for all of the users in order to select the display name, the mail, and the user principal name of those users, where the filtering condition is applied to all of those users who have a given name or a surname or a display name matching the search for text provided in the text box of my client-side web part.
Everything is documented with some screenshots. If you don't like it, feel free to contribute or create some issues so that we know what you want and how we can improve some things. An amazing picker that we implemented is the field term picker, which allows you to go to a taxonomy term set and select a particular term. You don't have to do any plumbing. Everything is arranged for you. The only thing you have to do is provide right inputs, like for instance, which title, which initial values, and so on. That's it. All the SharePoint calls, all the API calls, that's partly done by the control itself. So these are the property pane controls. Besides that, we also have the React controls. The React controls are the ones we are going to use in the content zone of our web app or any other SharePoint Framework solution. So what we have right now is the file type icon in combination with the list view, a placeholder, which was in the beginning available in SharePoint Framework, but it was removed. So we moved it over to the reusable control section so that you can use the placeholder control. If you, for instance, create a new control and you still need to do some configuration, you can use that placeholder control as the configuration part of your web part so that the person knows that it still needs to be configured, and once that is configured, it's going to be removed. So if you copy these codes, then you can have a web part like this. Let me go to my edit page. You see I have configure over here available, and now I can select this. Everything you see here is built with the PMP controls. So I'm not using any normal control set. So this is a list picker. The only thing I have to specify is which list I'm interested in. So am I interested in normal lists or document libraries? So I just said I want to have the document library. Do you want to toggle? This is a normal toggle, but it also has a hover card available, so you can add some extra information. Once we apply this, you see this is a list view control. Another great control we added is the changeable web art title. So you see here, I can immediately change the title of my web art by just typing it. If I click on publish, this title will be set. When I go back to my edit mode, this web art title can be changed again without actually opening the property pane. So this is all what you can find in these two modules or in these two libraries. So feel free to test them out, send some feedback in on GitHub. Everything is documented. If something is not clear, just file an issue and we respond to it. So Vesa, back to you.
And unmuting myself. That leaves us 3 minutes, so let me actually go to the slides and we can close up. So there was an unfortunate failure on my side, so my Skype actually completely crashed, but apparently I was able to save the start of the call, the recording of the call, so luckily that didn't take, we didn't fail completely. There's an interesting question on the ACS setup now from Joel and everybody else. So there's nothing I can actually share on this one right now, but the reality is that we have thousands of millions of add-ins registered in ACS. So it's not like this is going to be shut down without any notice for anybody in SharePoint Online, and clear replacement method for that one. So now there will be more news, there will be more, let's say, clarity on what does it mean in practice, but we're not really, obviously. So let's think about this in practical terms. In SharePoint Online, we have tens of millions of customers. In SharePoint Online, we also have millions of add-ins, installations, and registrations in ACS. Would Microsoft be stupid enough to just shut down the ACS for all of these customers? Answer is no. So should be all good. And we are working on the clarity on the end result and the story on behind of that. But that's a good point. Maybe that could be a one topic to talk about potentially in the general SharePoint special interest group call, just to get people up to date on where it is. How open source are the reusable controls? They are completely open source. So the intention is hopefully we get additional people contributing. We do have already multiple people contributing. So Alex from SharePoint list as an example, Elio. There's an idea list of ideas in the GitHub. So if you go to the GitHub list for the issue list, there's an ideas. If you're looking into contributing and you don't have an idea. We're also looking into harvesting more and more stuff from the first-party controls and first-party web parts, so get that stuff more and more available through these controls. So you'll see more and more stuff in these controls in the future. Hopefully people are happy and give us feedback so on these things, so we understand that there's an interest and there's an interest on them, so we know that we could keep on investing on them. Good, what else? We are hitting the hour. Thank you for every person who demonstrated something today. I do apologize on my behalf. Apparently Skype was partly sideways, so I was unable to do the demo. Thank you, AC, for trying to do the demo on that one. No worries on the fact that there was a unexpected issue on your side as well. It's a demo machine, dev machine, so yeah, your setup is slightly different than it would have been on my side. Let's do the demo on that one next week. But I think, Patrick, we are good to go on this one. So I have the recording saved. I think I missed like 2 seconds from the Elios part. I will cut all of the unnecessary chat on the, unnecessary wait times on the video when I'm processing that. And we'll get the video out within 24 hours in our PMP YouTube channel. You will see also a tweets from me, Patrick, and Office Dev PMP tweets when the video is out. But I think that's it. Happy 2018 year. It's 4th of January. Well, thank you for joining. Hopefully the stuff is interesting. Please keep on giving us feedback. If you find an issue in SharePoint Framework, as an example, go to the SP Dev Docs. Let us know where Microsoft is failing, what is good. Let us know where we are, what do you need, because unless we know, we can't fix it. But thank you, everybody. And let's stay in touch. The next special interest group call for SharePoint Framework is on January 18th. We have no idea, Patrick, right? What are we going to present on the 18th? Probably at least the Office 365 CLI.
We'll probably have an announcement around the at PNP release, and there should be an SP PNP JS release at that point as well.
And
so
hopefully the craft stuff
is
potentially out at that point. I can't confirm or deny that. And Office 365 CLI is definitely on the table as well. But thank you everybody for joining. Thank you everybody for watching the video. Please keep the feedback coming. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.